A couple weeks ago, you had said what we're seeing at the border isn't unusual, but in the month of December, there were more than 302,000 migrant encounters, the highest total for a single month ever recorded. So does the administration concede that what we're seeing now is unusual?
What I said was, to be exact, is that what we're seeing at the U.S. is ebbs and flows in how many migrants arrive at the border. It's something that happens every year. It ebbs and flows. And it's fueled by efforts of smugglers to encourage irregular migration. And I will add, since May 12th, DHS has removed folks who have been here illegally, who were not here on a legal basis, about 460,000 people that they've been able to remove. That's what I said. Every year we see an ebbs and flow, and that's what we're seeing at this time, and which is caused by misinformation and disinformation from smugglers.
Well, ICE reported that they only deported 142,000 in all of fiscal year 2023. December had more than double that cross in just a single month. So how is that really a measurable consequence?
Since May 12th, DHS has been able to remove and return over 460,000 individuals who did not have a legal basis to be here. That's what DHS has been able to do since May 12th. And I will remind you, that just last week we had Homeland Security Advisor Sherwood Randall and Secretaries Biden and Mayorkas meet with the Mexican government just last week, and it was a productive conversation. And we believe that the President of Mexico has taken significant enforcement actions, and we are starting to see the results. And so a lot of this is diplomacy, right? A lot of it is having diplomacy. A lot of it is enforcement. I just laid out how last May, while DHS was starting to remove folks who were not here on a legal basis, you had House Republicans voting to get rid of 2,000 Border Patrol agents. That's what they were doing. So we're trying to deal with the issue, and we get it. It ebbs and flows every year. We get it. We understand what's happening at the border. That's why there's negotiations happening on the Senate side where Republicans and Democrats deal with this issue.
Dealing with the issue as the administration's also fighting to keep up, to remove razor wire along the border that is intended to keep, this surge lowered, to keep people out from crossing illegally.
Governor Abbott's razor wire does not prevent. It does not prevent non-citizens from unlawfully crossing. That's not what it does. If anything, it puts at risk, it puts the lives of the Border Patrol at risk. It puts them in danger. That's what the razor wire does. And that's what the Governor Abbott is doing. Again, a political stunt that doesn't actually fix the problem and puts Border Patrol agents.
Fixing it right now?
Well, it's
a temporary solution, obviously. But I guess the reason that I'm coming to it from this perspective is because
it puts Border Patrol. It puts them in a difficult position, right?
I hear you. But when you're talking about the impeachment proceeding, for instance, as baseless, and you have, Democrats calling on the administration to do more. You had the mayor of Denver today saying that Denver has become the highest city per capita for migrant recipients in the country. You've had mayors in New York and Chicago begging for more federal help, saying that the administration is not answering them. And then you have Texas saying that they've had to take measures into their own hands because the administration isn't enforcing existing laws on the books. The numbers keep going up. You have, records being shattered every month. A population bigger than the size of Seattle coming in since October. And I understand where you're coming from, but in the meantime, when there's really not been any progress, and you always talked about how this has been an issue for decades, what is the administration doing right now to actually improve the crisis at the border?
We have House Republicans that's literally blocking the president's effort to do something. That's what they're doing. They're playing political games. They're doing political stunts. Literally, House Republicans themselves voted to decrease the amount of Border Patrol agents by 2,000. They're getting in the way, and they don't want to help. But we are glad that we are working with Senate Republicans and Democrats in a bipartisan way to come up with a bipartisan agreement to deal with the border security. That's what we're seeing. Those negotiations have been going on. They're continuing this week, and we really do hope that we come to a place where we can talk about a bipartisan agreement where we can deal with the funding and the policy. And House Republicans are getting in the way. That's what they want to focus on. That's where they see there could be the most effective, and that's not what we believe. That's not what the American people want. Go ahead, Peter.
Just to be clear, how does the razor wire put Border Patrol agents at risk? Karine, the Biden administration themselves said that the agents have been cutting the wire to provide medical assistance to migrants or to apprehend migrants who have already crossed into U.S. territory.
Well, let me be more clear. It makes it more difficult. It actually makes it more difficult for Border Patrol to apprehend those who do cross. So I'm going to just clear that up a little bit. It just makes it, just to be more clear, it does make it more difficult for them to do their jobs, right? It does.
A quick last question, if we
Why are you repeating this false claim that Republicans voted to reduce the number of Border Patrol agents, even though the Washington Post gave the administration 3 Pinocchios for that?
So we don't believe it's a false claim. Our statements were very direct here. Last year, House GOP voted, and not only did they vote for it, but they touted their Limit, Save, Grow Act. That's the act. Well,
And they vowed that it would never affect Border Patrol.
They voted for and touted it, right? This is an act. And this would have forced the elimination of 2,000 Border Patrol agents. That's what this act that they touted, that they voted for in the House. So that was their proposal, and that was what they voted for back in May.
They clearly stated at that time that Border Patrol, also veterans' benefits and entitlements would never be impacted by any of the reductions. And also, the bill never had any appropriations in it. So this claim that you guys are rolling out, it's the White House applying White House math to a bill that never had any appropriations. And moreover, the administration or the members in Congress who put this together vowed that it wouldn't affect these things. So the reason I ask is because it's just to voters, don't you think they know the difference between what is a truthful statement and what is spin? And is it insulting to them at all to keep saying it when it's just not true?
One thing that the president does not do is insult voters or American people, to be more exact, because I want to be careful about this, what I can say about this upcoming election. What I will say is, if you look at the bill, this act that they touted, that they voted for, House Republicans back in May, it was very clear that it would have forced the elimination of 2,000 Border Patrol agents. That's what that act would have done. We were very direct about that. We were very clear about that. This is what they touted. This is what they put out there. This is what House Republicans voted for. I mean, that's where they are. They have gotten in the way every time we are trying to deal with the border. House Republicans have gotten in the way. So we appreciate the bipartisan conversation that we're having with Republicans, let's not forget, with Republicans in the Senate. That's why it's bipartisan, and Democrats, on dealing with the border. House Republicans get in the way. They wanted to literally eliminate 2,000 Border Patrol agents in this particular act that they touted, that they voted for back in May.
Notwithstanding all of the fact checks on that, if you're saying that the White House, the president doesn't want to insult the American people, will the administration then amend its separate statement that imply that Texas officials were responsible for the deaths of 3 migrants when in fact they had nothing to do with it? They had already been dead for an hour by the time Mexico told anyone in the U.S. about it, and the administration admitted as much in their court filing. They acknowledged that in their court filing, but the statement from the White House implies that Texas was responsible, and a number of outlets were forced to issue corrections and editor's notes because of that White House statement. So will the White House amend that statement?
So let's be sensitive here. 3 people died. 3 migrants died. 2 children and a woman. That was devastating. Devastating situation, heartbreaking situation. So let's be really mindful of what we're talking about here. I want to take a step back and just as you're talking about our statement, look, as I mentioned, a woman and 2 children died. They drowned near Eagle Pass, which is, as I said, devastating, and that Texas officials blocked Border Patrol from accessing the area. That's what was happening at that time. Our statement is consistent with DOJ's filing. As the DOJ filing said, there was an ongoing emergency situation that Border Patrol was blocked from accessing. There were other migrants in the water as well. But I'm just saying there
situation
was
separate.
There was an ongoing.
The White House statement the White House statement says that Texas officials blocked U.S. Border Patrol from attempting to provide emergency assistance.
There were other migrants in the water.
Then why
as
wasn't
well.
that included in the
There were
statement?
other migrants in the water.
That's what you were referring to.
Our statement is very much consistent with DOJ filing. Anything else specific you want to know about that, I would certainly refer you to DOJ.
Following up on the border talks, I assume there have been no conversations with Speaker Johnson since they were at the White House either.
I don't have any conversations to read out since last week.
Sure.
And
And
they
in his
just
letter,
met last week.
in his letter today, he also said that House Republicans would move forward next week with impeaching Secretary Mayorkas. Given these strong differences of opinion on the border, how realistic is it really that there is a deal that it can even pass that would pass the Senate and the House at this point?
Look, we have to be optimistic because there is actually conversations happening in the Senate. There are, in a bipartisan way, right? And so we feel confident about that. It's been happening in good faith, right? In order to have negotiations, you have to have it in good faith, and that's what we believe. There has been progress in their conversations, and so we are optimistic about that. Now, as I stated moments ago, multiple times already in this past couple of minutes, House Republicans have to make a decision here. They have to make a decision on if they want to be part of the solution or part of the problem. That's on them. That is on them. I'll say one thing about the impeachment of Mayorkas, or the proceedings to impeach Mayorkas. It is shameful. It is shameful. That's how they want to use their time, wasteful time, to try to impeach Secretary Mayorkas. I think it is shameful, and what they should do, which is the premise of your question, is work with us, work with Democrats, work with Republicans, work with the senators who are actually trying to do something to find a solution.
Does the White House believe that House Republicans are intentionally dragging out these negotiations until after November's election?
House Republican, which negotiations?
On border security.
I mean, they're not even,
Until after the election.
Look, they have a choice to make. The negotiations right now are happening in the Senate. They're working towards a bipartisan agreement. We appreciate that. They've been happening in good faith. We think it's headed in the right direction. They've been doing it for the past couple of weeks, past almost months now. And so we think that's important. House Republicans have a decision to make. They do. They have a decision to make. Go ahead.
If I could go back.
Thank you. So, you guys talk a lot, including today, about how the border wouldn't be such a big deal if Congress would have just passed your immigration bill on day one. Who was in charge of Congress on day one?
So it's been 3 years. It's been three whole years, more than 3 years, more than 1,000 days. And look, this is a difficult issue, obviously. This is a difficult issue. And what we have said is that Congress has to act, right? Congress, Democrats, Republicans have to act. But in those 3 years, it is true that Republicans have gotten in the way. They just have, Peter. They have consistently used immigration, the immigration system, the broken system, as a political stunt. That's what they've done. They've gotten in the way in trying to get more Border Patrol agents. They've gotten in the way in actually trying to fix what's happening, the challenges at the border. They did.
So,
I mean, they
the
voted.
Democrats
They've
that were in
actually
charge for the
voted.
first 2 years, no responsibility.
It has. I'm not saying that Democrats have not been in control the first 2 years. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying House Republicans have gotten in the way. They have. They have purposefully gotten in the way in trying to fix what's happening at the border.
And how is President Biden ever going to convince the 3/4 of voters who are worried about his physical and mental health that he is okay, even though in Las Vegas he told a story about recently talking to a French president who died in 1996?
I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole with you,
Why-
sir.
What is
We're
the
going to
rabbit
go.
hole?
Go ahead.
He said
go
he
ahead.
talked to Mitterrand.
Go ahead.
in-
You saw the president in Vegas, in California. You've seen the president in South Carolina. You saw him in Michigan. I'll just leave it there. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, Jackie.
Karine, is the administration coming around to the idea that physical border barriers work?
Can you say more? Where's this? What do you mean? Where's this coming from?
Well, it's been 6 weeks since you guys won a Supreme Court case that would have allowed you to remove razor wire at the Texas border that you guys argued there's an emergency, immediate need to take down, but it's still up. So DHS hasn't touched it. Why is it still up?
I mean, you have to speak to the Department of DHS, obviously. I just don't have anything for you on that. We were very clear about what we thought about those wires. Obviously, DOJ took action. I just don't have anything on timeline of those coming down. I'm sure they'll have more for you on that.
And the president said at the border yesterday that it's long past time to act. Heard all of your previous answers on executive orders, but the president took 94 or so executive actions in his first 100 days that largely loosened immigration policy. One of those was narrowing who ICE could remove. And the administration, as of yesterday, I believe, is now calling on sanctuary cities to cooperate with ICE. So why doesn't the president act, like he said it's time to do, and start undoing some of those policies that he put in place right when he got into office?
So I think a couple of things. Since day one, the president took action. He did. He put forth a comprehensive immigration policy, and he did that because he understood what was happening, right? He understood that the immigration system was broken. He understood that we needed to take action, and he did. 3 years, and during those 3 years, Republicans got in the way. Any resources, any additional resources that we asked for, they voted down. They didn't want to move forward with it. And so the president tried to do the best that he can with what he was able to get. And, we get to a point at the end of the year where we start negotiating with Republicans and Democrats in the Senate. We come up with a piece of legislation, a proposal that is supported by the Border Patrol, right, union, that's supported by U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I mean, we took action. We have taken action over and over and over again, and Republicans reject it. They get in the way.
Immigration overhaul versus narrow action that he could take to secure the border, improve the situation that we're seeing ravaging communities.
We took action at the end of last year, worked with Republicans in the Senate, Democrats in the Senate, came up with a bipartisan agreement that would actually make a difference. I mean, it's Congress's job to legislate. It is their job to legislate.
You're afraid of legal challenges with things like student loans.
Here's the thing.
You used executive orders when you wanted to.
We have taken action over the last 3 years on the border. We've taken policy action. We have taken action. The president has. Now we need to get it into a place where we can actually make a real difference on the border challenges that we're seeing. And we did. I mean, this is Republicans getting in the way because of what they were told by the former president. That's shameful. That is. We're talking about the American people getting things done for the American people. Majority of the Americans care about this issue. They care. So the president worked across the aisle to get a piece of a proposal done that was negotiated in a bipartisan way that's getting support from organizations that you would never dream would support.
He's shaming people for not acting. He's also not acting.
I'm so sorry. That is so false. He has taken action. He has taken action. Republicans rejected it because of the last president. That is not what is going on here. It isn't. I mean, they told on themselves. Republicans told on themselves and said that the former president told them to not move forward with the bipartisan border patrol deal. So they told on themselves.
Executive action he can take?
We're saying that the best way to move forward is legislation. That's with any issue. The best way to move forward is legislation. Put that into law. And we have a bipartisan agreement that would do that. By the way, the bipartisan agreement, that border deal, has provisions in there that these House Republicans want. These congressional Republicans have been asking for years. So what's the problem? What's the problem? Is it politics or is it the American people? That's for them to answer. Okay. Acceptable.
I do have to ask you about a different topic.
Oh.
Why is President Biden saying that his uncle Bozie was eaten by cannibals?
So, I answered this question yesterday. I believe I've seen some clips on your network about me answering this question. I don't have much to say beyond what I said to some of your colleagues. Look, I was there. I think you traveled with us too to Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if you were there at the memorial in Scranton. The president had a emotional and I think a symbolic moment. He had an opportunity as president to honor his uncle's service in uniform. He had an opportunity to be there as president, to speak to the bravery of his uncle, and not just his uncle, but many U.S. service members that put their lives on the line on behalf of this country. So his uncle, who lost his life when the military aircraft he was on crashed in the Pacific after taking off near New Guinea, the president highlighted his uncle's story as he made the case for honoring our sacred commitment to equip those we send to war and take care of them and their families when they come home. And as he iterated, the last thing American veterans are, or the last thing Americans should be called, are suckers and losers. And that is, those types of words should not come from a commander-in-chief, as we have in the past. And we should actually be lifting up our American veterans and honoring them. And that's what you saw from this president.
And I agree, Second Lieutenant Ambrose J. Finnegan was a war hero, but the Pentagon says, for unknown reasons, the plane was forced to ditch in the ocean, both engines failed at low altitude. Why is President Biden saying he was shot down, there's no evidence of that, and why is he saying that his uncle was eaten by cannibals? That is a bad way to go.
He lost his life. It's not, look, I'm not, we should not make jokes about
It's
this.
not.
Wait.
President Biden said that his uncle was eaten by cannibals.
I mean, your last line, it's for a laugh, it's for a funny statement, and he takes this very seriously. His uncle, who served and protected this country, lost his life serving, and that should matter. You have a president that lifts up our U.S. troops, our American veterans, every day, who thinks about them, who actually thinks they're all heroes, and they are. And you have a former president who disrespects that, who doesn't honor that. Said it as president, suckers or losers. That's what he said.
Where did the cannibalism come from?
I think you're missing the point. The point is you have a president that lifts up American veterans, who lifts up our U.S. service members. And that's what matters. He understands how critical and how important it is to be commander-in-chief. I'm going to move on. Go ahead.
Does the president support?
And just a quick follow on the video you
Sure.
were talking about.
Yeah.
There were two instances in recent days where leaders, former President Obama and George Maloney of Italy, they physically put hands on the president to guide him and show him, give stage directions. Are they doing that on their own, or has anybody asked them to run the show like that?
First of all, let me spoke to the most recent, right? And as we saw on Saturday, President Obama's office put out a statement. So I would refer you to that statement about what was being accused in those by others. And he said this did not happen in the sense of what people were saying they were seeing, right? Or what was being falsely reported that they were seeing. Let's not forget, President Obama, President Biden have a relationship. They are friends. They're like family to each other. And I think that's what you saw. You saw the president put his hand on the back of President Biden, and they walked off the stage after taking questions or at an event taking questions from Jimmy Kimmel. That is what you saw. But I would refer you to President Obama's office statement. They talked about this, they discussed this, and they came out with it pretty quickly.
And Maloney,
All right.
you wanted to say something about
Maloney, I don't have anything. I don't know specifically what happened with Maloney.
The wandering, the parachutist, etc.
Oh, I mean, look, that was, as I said, it was a cheap, a cheap fake. That was definitely a cheap fake. It was. This was widely fact-checked. That video was widely fact-checked, including by conservative media, on what happened, what occurred. The president walked over to give a thumbs up to divers who had just landed right in front of him. And if you run that tape a little bit longer, you would see what was happening, what the president was actually doing, and it is a cheap fake.
So this
That is what.
About nothing, and he's totally normal.
What I'm saying is, this is a president, right? Let's step back for a second. Instead of, and I said this moments ago, instead of Republicans, focusing on the president's performance in office and what he's been able to accomplish, his actual record, they do these cheap fakes. They are cheap fakes. And you're asking me about the Maloney, you're asking me what happened. That video was, Okay, let's talk about Juneteenth.
Let's.
The president stood there listening to the music and he didn't dance. Excuse me, I did not know not dancing was a health issue. That is a weird thing to actually flag when if you look at the people who are around him, you look at the expanded video of the people who were around him, they were not there were some folks who were not dancing either, and that has been fact checked. I mean, just because you're standing up listening to music and not dancing, that is not a health issue. That is just not a health issue.
The majorities of American voters who are telling pollsters repeatedly for years now that they have serious concerns about this president's cognitive fitness are being misled by cheap fake videos? Is that
I'm
what you're
saying
telling
that
us?
there have been, in recent weeks, there have been cheap fakes videos that have been fact checked. They've been fact checked by conservative media as well, to say that these videos are false. They're purposefully being altered.
So he's
That
fine.
is,
So he's
that
fine.
is, look,
He's fine.
the president has done more in his 3.5 years as president than most modern day president. And what he's been able to deliver. He's able to do that because he knows what he's doing. He knows how to deliver for the American people. He's able to make sure that we attack climate crisis with the Inflation Reduction Act. He's made sure that we're able to create 15 million jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs. He was able to make sure that unemployment went down. He was able to make sure that we are able to have Medicaid actually able to negotiate with pharmaceutical companies, something that no other president has been able to do. This president has been able to do. I think that tells you everything that you need to do by looking at his record. And what you're seeing right now is Republicans, instead of talking what I just listed about, what I just talked about, they're really diving into these cheap fake videos. And it's in bad faith. That's what I'm saying. What they're doing is pure bad faith, and it's been fact checked by many, including conservative fact checkers. Go ahead.
The 3 U.S. troops died in Jordan this year and more in Afghanistan in 2021. How can the president say none have died during his administration?
So, look, obviously the president, as you know, is the commander-in-chief, and you hear him even when he ends all of his remarks. He talks about respecting our troops who are serving today, and he will always do that and continues to do that. And he obviously his son was obviously served as well. So this is something that he respects, and so look, I don't think that will ever change. Obviously, our hearts and our thoughts go out to the family who are clearly still suffering and thinking about their loved ones, and so we'll continue to do that. And I refer you to the campaign about specifics about fact checking and all of those pieces. But I can speak to a president that has been incredibly respectful of the military and what they do for us day in and day out, and how they continue to serve our country. You saw that on display, obviously, in D-Day when he was in Normandy. He did that twice, and honoring those who have fallen, and so he'll continue to do that. Any particular fact check, I would certainly refer you to the campaign.
Well, I understand that was said during debate so that we can refer to the campaign, but he's the president. These weren't off-the-cuff remarks. They felt prepared, and it was clearly a mistake. Does he not consider these to be?
What I will say is the president respects our military force. He respects the families who have lost members of the military. He will continue to do that. He has been very consistent about that, not just as president, but as vice president, as senator. You hear him talk about the service and how they put their lives on the line every single day to protect us. He always ends his remarks mentioning and lifting up our service members, and that's what I will speak to at this time. All right, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Karine.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in New York.
Thank you, Karine. The administration strongly criticized the media for clips showing the president appearing to be confused, freezing at times, and you called it cheap fakes, misinformation, disinformation. In one case, even implied that it was the product of artificial intelligence, calling it deep fakes. Do you have any regret over using that language?
Not at all. Not at all. And let me be clear, it was a certain part of the media. And, I mean, you can speak to this better than I can. A certain part of the media which was doing this. And look, independent, mainstream fact checkers in the press and misinformation experts have been calling out cheap fakes. And at the end of the day, they're fakes. That's what they were. Targeting the president. They had said, the reporters and these misinformation experts said that this president was being targeted. And what we did was echo them. That's what we did. And look, we'll certainly continue to call that out. And the cheap fakes didn't come from me. I didn't coin that. That didn't come from this White House or this podium. That came from the media. They called it cheap fakes. And they said this president, President Biden, was being targeted on misinformation. It was purposefully being done to this president. And what we did is we echoed that. So I don't regret it at all.
Well,
It was just the
also
facts.
Use that sort of approach to counter the Wall Street Journal report, for instance, that interviewed 45 people over several months who criticized, the president's handling of himself in meetings, and broadly.
Which approach? I'm not following.
Talking
the question.
about the president's age being a factor.
I don't understand where
the approach from the White House
cheap fakes
to criticize
was
the
related.
reporting, to basically cast the reporting as not true. And broadly, this has been, the reason I ask is like the administration's response to our questions often seems to be, don't believe your lying eyes, the border is secure, Afghanistan withdrawal was a success, inflation is transitory. So is that going to change?
I mean, you just laid out, Jackie, you just laid out a bunch of things, so just give me a second here. First of all, I think this is a give and take, right? Even in this briefing room, we go back and forth. I go back and forth with you, with your colleagues, with everyone here. And I think we have a right to say if something we don't think is true or something we think we want to push back on. That is a right for us to do, just like you have a right to push me and say, actually, our sources or our reporting say this. I think it's a give and take. This is what makes what we do in this room almost every day. This is an exercise of democracy. This is an exercise of freedom of the press. That's what we're doing here. And I think if there's some reporting that we don't believe to be true, I think it's okay if we go back and forth and say, actually, we don't think that reporting is true, right? And so I don't see anything wrong with that. That is what this is. That is what this is. This is what we actually do on a daily basis. This is how we lead the world, on making sure that journalism exists and you all have the right to do your jobs. But, we also have our right as the press office here in the administration, if we don't believe something is true or we want to share our side of things, that we do so. Look, on the other things that you just listed, I've talked about this president's record a lot, often here, in this just however minutes I've been at this podium. And look, when it comes to the economy, the data shows it. When it comes to healthcare, the data shows it. Afghanistan, obviously, it is an important conversation to have, and that is something that the president wanted to do and end a war, a forever war. He wanted to make sure that we stop putting our young women and men in harm's way. And that is a difficult decision to make. It is not an easy decision to make. But he's the president and commander-in-chief, and he wanted to make sure that we got our armed troops out of harm's way. And so I honor and respect our back and forth, and it is always an honor and privilege for me to do this job, and I will continue to do that. Go ahead.
The White House released a 6-page summary back in February. I don't think that was a full accounting necessarily. And Dr. O'Connor in that memo described the president as, quote, a healthy, active, robust 81-year-old male who remains fit to successfully execute the duties of the presidency. I think that is clearly not what the majority of Americans are seeing. And we have a new poll from CBS News that says 72% of registered voters say the president does not have the mental and cognitive health to serve as president. So are you saying that the majority of Americans are misguided and that they just need to trust Dr. O'Connor and take him at his word?
So a couple of things, and I want to say the president is feeling better, and you saw him last night, you saw him today, but he does indeed still have a cold. Look, I want to be very sensitive here, and I think it is important to be sensitive here. We understand how the American people are feeling. We get it. We do. And I do not want to take away from that. I'm not going to speak. I know that there was, you all did a poll, CNN did a poll. I'm not going to speak to every poll. I'm just not going to do that. And also, I'm, constraints in doing that as we're heading into an election in November, as you know. What I will say is majority of Americans also support the work that the president has doing in a sense of his agenda and what he stands for, what he's been fighting for, whether it's reproductive rights, whether it's an economy that works for all. And that is something that the president's going to continue to do. And this is why we have said, and I have said this multiple times from here, is that's why the president acknowledges. We get it. We get what Americans are feeling. That's why he's acknowledging. He's not a young man. That's why he's acknowledging he's a little slower than he used to be in walking and not as smooth as speaking. We get that. But we also want to make sure that we point to the successes that he's had, his record, and we want to continue to build on his unprecedented record. And I'm not going to discount what the American people see or feel. What I can say is what we know from our side of things. We could speak to his record. And we could speak to what the president has been able to acknowledge. And I think that's important too. And that's basically acknowledging what Americans are seeing and feeling.
Well, if you get it, why not release more about his medical, his physical and mental health? Why not?
What we have released has been very comprehensive. It has been. It has been transparent. And if you compare it, right, it has. We have put that out there. And, and we'll continue to do so. Put that information out there. And MJ, I want to be very clear. I get the question that you're asking me, but this is also a president who has had a historic administration. He has, in delivering on legislation, key policies. That is because with age comes wisdom and comes experience. And I think that matters as well.
Did Dr. O'Connor watch the debate?
I believe Dr. O'Connor traveled with us to the debate, so.
Did he have any concerns after seeing the
No,
president's
not at
debate
all.
performance?
Not
I
at
have
all.
one more question.
Hi. Is President Biden considering stepping down?
Absolutely not. And you heard, I believe directly from the campaign as well.
Given the groundswell of concern from fellow Democrats, from donors, from supporters, doesn't he owe it to the American public to reflect on whether he should step down?
I mean, look, it very much into Sung Min's question, and my answer to her question, where he had an opportunity to talk to supporters. He's done it a couple times at this point and laid out what happened on that night. Talked about how he understands, and it was not his best night. He understands that it is fair for people to ask that question. But we cannot forget his record and what he's been able to do. We cannot forget how he has been able to deliver for the American people for almost 4 years. That matters too. And he has the most historic record administration, the most in modern politics, and that should matter. And he wants to continue to do that work. And, a lot of what's on his agenda is very much popular with majority of the American people, whether it's continuing to build a strong economic policies. He's done that. Creating new jobs. He's done that. 15 million jobs. He wants to work on that and continue to do that. And so he wants to continue to deliver, expanding healthcare. All of these things he believes is important. Majority of Americans believe it's important. And his record, he wants to make sure that people do not forget about the record that he's been able to lay on behalf of the American people.
Is there anything, Karine, that would change his mind?
Look, I cannot lay out something that would change the president's mind. He has been very clear, and he's going to continue to build on the unprecedented record that he's been able to lay out for the American people. That's his focus right now. Catch up.
And then quick ones. There's been a lot of reporting in the last 24 hours about a Parkinson's expert who's come to visit the White House almost a dozen times over the last year or so, including at least one meeting with the president's physician. Could you state, very clearly, yes or no, was that expert here to participate in anything surrounding the care of the President of the United States?
So let me just say a couple of things. We have had a comprehensive, and I just want to take another step back, comprehensive physical examination, the president has had that. We've given a comprehensive report. We've shared that the past 3 years. Every year that he has had this exam, he sees a neurologist. Just to give you a quote from that, from the report most recently in February, an extremely detailed neurological exam was again reassuring in that there were no findings which would be consistent with any cerebellar or other central neurological disorder such as a stroke, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, or ascending lateral sclerosis, end quote. So that came directly from in February in that comprehensive report that was provided by the president's doctor to me that I share with all of you. So anyone who is watching can certainly go to our website.
Which was this expert's visits, was multiple visits to the White House pertaining at all to the president's care?
Here's the thing. I've said he has had three. He has had three physicals. In those 3 physicals, that's when he has seen a specialist, a neurological specialist. I have to be super mindful here, and this is why, and I'll explain this to you in a second. There are thousands of military personnel who come onto this White House. Many of them get the care from the White House medical unit, and so need to be super careful. There are, the medical unit hosts a wide range of specialists, from dermatologists to neurologists, and so I cannot speak to every person because there's actually a security reasons to protect their privacy. We respect and protecting people's privacy, so do not want to share. I'm not going to share people's names from here, but the president, I can tell you, has seen a neurologist 3 times, as it's connected to a physical that he gets every year that we provide to all of you.
It's a very basic, direct question.
Wait, hold on, wait a second.
8 times, or at least once, in regards to the president specifically.
Hold on a second.
That's what you should be able to answer by this point.
Wait, no. No, wait a minute. Ed, please. A little respect here, please. So every year, around the president's physical examination, he sees a neurologist. That's 3 times, right? So I am telling you that he has seen a neurologist 3 times while he has been in this presidency. That's what I'm saying. I am telling you that he has seen them 3 times. That is what I'm sharing with you, right? So every time he has a physical, he has had to see a neurologist. So that is answering that question.
No, it's not.
No, it is. It is. You're
Dr.
asking me.
Kevin Kennard come to the White House
But I
specifically
also
about the
said to you,
conditions.
Ed, I also said to you, for security reasons, we cannot share names. We cannot share names. We have to.
Others he would have met with.
We
But
cannot.
You can share names in regards to if
We-
someone came here in
No,
regards
we
to the
cannot
president.
share. We cannot share names of specialists broadly, from a dermatologist to a neurologist. We cannot share names. There are security reasons. We have to. We have to protect.
It's public.
I understand that.
looked it up before I came out here.
hear
It's
you.
right there for anyone to see.
Ed, I hear you. I cannot from here confirm any of that because we have to keep their privacy. I think they would appreciate that too. We have to give them.
Patient or the doctor?
We have to keep their privacy.
It is
It's
public.
public
I
information.
hear you.
listed that he
I
went
am.
to
And you're
I,
going to allow this to
guys,
fester
guys,
longer, Karine,
guys,
unless the White House
guys,
just answers the
hold
question.
on a second. There's no reason to go back and forth with me in this
We're a
aggressive
little
way.
miffed around here about how information's been shared with the press corps
What do
about him.
you missed about? What do you miss
Everything
about?
he just asked about.
And then every time I come back and I answer the question that
And
you guys
answered it
asked.
correctly, you didn't have to come back and clean it up.
I
a
never
few days
answered the
later.
question incorrectly. That is not true. I was asked about a medical exam. I was asked about a physical. That was in the line of question that I answered. And I said, no, he did not have a medical exam, and I still stand by that. Matter of fact, the president still stands by that. He had a verbal check-in. That is something that the president has a couple times a week. A couple times a week.
Now in regards to Dr. Kevin Kennard.
And I am telling you right now that I am not confirming names from here. It is a security reasons. I am not going to do that, Ed. It doesn't matter how hard you push me. It doesn't matter how angry you get with me. I'm not going to confirm a name. It doesn't matter if it's even in the log. I am not going to do that from here. That is not something I am going to do. What I can share with you is that the president has seen a neurologist for his physical 3 times. 3 times. And it is in the reporting that we share a comprehensive reporting. Matter of fact, it's more than what the last guy shared, and it is in line with what George George W. Bush did. It's in line with what Obama did. And so it is comprehensive. It is out there. I just read a quote from it, but I am not going to devolve somebody's name or confirm someone. I'm not going to do that. That is as privacy for that person. I'm not going to do that. It doesn't matter how hard you push me. It doesn't matter how angry you get with me from here. I'm just not going to do that. It is inappropriate and it's not acceptable. So I'm not going to do it.
Not about the name?
Go ahead. I know we had our chat yesterday.
Yes, thank you,
So go
Karine.
ahead.
Does President Biden commit to serving a full second term if reelected?
Yes.
Thank you. We know the president says that his health is fine, but it's just his brain, and that he's sharpest before
He was joking, by the way. I just want to make sure that that's out there. And he was making a lighthearted joke as he was
That he has
speaking
problems
off.
with his brain.
He's speaking off the cuff, and he was making a joke. You know the president; he likes to joke a lot. He's
Okay.
the same guy who says, "I know I look 40," right? So he likes
That's
to
a
make
joke.
jokes. It is a joke.
Okay.
I think people laugh when he says it.
Well, he
So it
also
is a
said
joke.
he's sharpest before 8 p.m. So, say that the Pentagon at some point picks up an incoming nuke. It's 11 p.m. Who do you call? The First Lady?
He has a team that lets him know of any news that is pertinent and important to the American people. He has someone that is decided, obviously, with his National Security Council on who gets to tell him that news.
So, Kevin McCarthy just said that when he was the speaker, many times when we had meetings in the Oval Office, Jill was there as well. When the First Lady's in these meetings, is she making decisions or is she
No.
just advising the president?
No, the president is the president of the United States. He makes decisions.
Okay. Another family member. President Biden has told me before, he and his son don't have any business dealings together. So what is Hunter Biden doing in White House meetings?
Are you talking about the meeting where they came together from Camp David and the two of them walked to the president's meeting and he was there?
There's a report that aides were struck by his presence during their discussions.
Look, I'm certainly not going to get into private conversations that occur. What I can say is, and I spoke to this before, is that when they came back from Camp David, the president spent a couple days at Camp David with his family. He is very close to his family, as you know. It was the week of 4th of July, which is why his family members were here last week. They walked together, and they walked together into the meeting.
Can you say if Hunter Biden has access to classified information?
No.
It would seem that people in this White House knew that President Biden was slipping, and it was hidden from the American people. So who ordered White House officials to cover up a declining president?
I know that that is a narrative that you love, and
Well,
to
when he
no,
goes in
wait,
10 days,
hold on.
he did a press conference
Hold
at
on.
NATO.
Hold
I'm
on.
in it. There's all these things that
Hold
I need
on.
to finish, and then 10 days later, I'm dropping out.
Okay, okay, you're asking me like multiple questions here. Wait. First of all, there's been no cover-up. Want to be very clear about that. I know that's the narrative that you all want. Wait, no, you can't.
Well,
Okay.
I've been with President Biden for 5
Are
years.
you going to let me answer the question?
Would you at least admit that the debate was not just a bad night?
Wait. Can I answer the question?
Yes.
All right. Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. To your first question, it is not a cover-up. I know that is the narrative that you all want. It is not. I'm going to say this again, and you're going to hear directly from the president. I hope you listen tonight. I think it's going to be incredibly powerful and important. The Oval Office, presidents, as you know, when they make speeches from the Oval Office, it's because there are important moments that they want to directly make sure that the American people hear from them, and it's obviously going to be done in prime time. I would listen to the president. And then what I will say is that it is not easy making a decision that the president made on Sunday. It is just not. It is not. And as you all reported, it is historic. It is unusual. This is not the norm. And making a decision like that for someone who has been in public service for 54 years, U.S. Senator for 36, President to Vice President to President Obama for 8, and now a first term as president himself. These are not easy decisions to make. They're just not. And so the fact that he was able to make that decision in a selfless way, that's admirable. He's also very proud of his vice president. Okay.
Thank you, Karine. How mad is President Biden at Nancy Pelosi?
You guys keep asking me this question. I think I've answered this question multiple times.
Well, he has admitted now for the first time in this interview that Pelosi is one of the Democrats who squeezed him out of the race. She thought he was going to sink the whole ticket. So how mad is he at her for that?
The president respects his good friend, former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and I think it's mutual. And she also gave interviews, and I know you followed closely as well over the weekend. She made statements like preeminent president among the top few to have served in this office. And I think that says a lot coming from the former Speaker.
So no hard feelings?
He respects his good friend, Speaker Pelosi.
I asked if there were any hard feelings.
No hard feelings. He respects her, and I think it's mutual. But I will let the president speak for himself, obviously.
And a different topic. Since when does the vice president have what sounds like a Southern accent?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well,
I mean, this is.
She was talking about unions in Detroit using one tone of voice.
Is this something that
same
you think?
line.
Okay, Peter.
That she used the same line in Pittsburgh, and it sounded like she at least had some kind of a Southern drawl.
I mean, do you hear the question that you're? I mean, do you think Americans seriously think that this is an important question? They care. You know what they care about? They care about the economy. They care about lowering costs. They care about health care. That's what Americans care about.
So
that's what they want to hear.
This is something...
They care about. Your colleague just asked me about what basically we talked about, went back and forth about democracy and freedom. That's what they care about. I'm not even going to entertain some question about the press. It's just hearing it sounds so ridiculous.
Well, but hearing it is.
The question I'm talking about. The question is just insane.
Is that how she talks in meetings here?
I'm just Peter. We're moving on. We're still moving around. Go ahead, Anita.
Thanks. Starting with Ukraine and this.
Karine, regarding the exploding pagers in Lebanon, forgive me if I missed it. Did you say if the president had been briefed on the incident?
I have not spoken to the president, so I can't speak to that. That is, I can go back and make sure that NSC was able to do this. My guess is he's aware and he's been briefed, but I haven't directly spoken to the president about that.
Regarding the phone call between President Biden and former President Trump, how long did it last?
I'm not going to go beyond what we read out. The president called the former president and was relieved that he was safe, and the former president certainly appreciated the call. I just don't have anything further beyond that. He expressed his he was thankful for the President Biden calling him to check in on him. I just don't have anything beyond that.
And down in Florida, the governor there, Ron DeSantis, said he doesn't think it's in the best interest of the state or the nation to have the same federal agencies seeking to prosecute Trump also handle the alleged assassination attempt against him. What's the White House view on that? He wants to open a state investigation into the alleged assassination attempt, and he says that the feds should not be investigated. It's not in the interest of the nation for the feds to investigate that.
So look, the president has complete confidence in the Secret Service. I've said this multiple times at this point. There is an investigation happening. We're going to let that process move forward. And I think until that happens, I don't think anybody should comment on that.
And finally, you said that the president is heading to UNGA. Is the vice president going as well?
Right now, the vice president is not planning to participate in the UN General Assembly related events. As in the past, it is possible she meets with foreign leaders here in Washington, D.C. next week, but I don't have anything to announce, further to announce on her involvement.
Is that a conscious decision, sort of like there's only one president at a time type thing?
I wouldn't read it that way. Appreciate the question, though.
Thanks, Karine. And thank you for clarifying when the president first learned of this Iranian influence campaign or attempts to reach people associated with the campaign. Now, what is now the Harris-Walz campaign says it was people associated with the campaign, not campaign staffers, who received emails from Iranian hackers. Were any of those people associated with the campaign, as they put it, members of the Biden family?
I would have to refer you to FBI, CISA, and ODNI on this. They can speak to the specifics. I would also have to refer you to the campaign.
And, well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
He's not a member of the campaign anymore, and apparently these people weren't either. That's why we're asking you here at the White House.
And this is something that the FBI, CISA, and ODNI can speak to. I cannot speak to that from
Whether any
here.
of these people were White House officials who weren't on the Wilmington payroll at the time, being contacted through their personal email, you couldn't say.
You have to speak to FBI, ODNI, and CISA on this one.
Regarding the Quad, is the Vice President attending any of the meetings on Saturday?
She will not be attending any of the meetings on Saturday.
And the decision not to allow reporters to see the bilaterals that he'll be having Friday afternoon and Saturday, does this have something to do with the foreign press pools from India, Japan, and Australia? Is there a security concern with having them on the grounds of his home?
What I can say is the president wants to have a personal moment with the leaders. This is relationships that he has had with leaders of the Quad throughout, obviously, his tenure here as president. He wanted to have continue to foster those personal relationships. He wanted to have a private moment with them, continue to grow those relationships. That's what this is about.
But not, the fact also that he's not having a press conference around this, was that a request of any of the other governments?
I can't speak to private conversations that our folks at NSC are having with the different countries. I don't have anything to add to that. What I want to say is, it is important to him inviting them to Wilmington, his home state, his home city, his home state, obviously Delaware. It was important for him to have these personal touches. It was important to him to do something that he hadn't done before. Bring him to his home, bring him to his home city. But there's going to be plenty of opportunities. It's not like we're not allowing all of you to see many other things that are going to develop throughout the day. I mean, I just went through them. A Quad family photo. He's going to take them to his high school. You all are going to be there. There's going to be some really important announcement about Cancer Moonshot. You all are going to be there. There's going to be an opportunity to see them when they leave on Saturday as well, depart. You'll see him saying goodbye to the leaders on Saturday. There's going to be, but can you also appreciate, I hear you all, but can you also appreciate that we have created other opportunities? There is this
They're
one.
called photo ops. That's what you've created. They're not a press conference, which we would prefer.
And what I was
Go ahead.
going to suggest is what baffles people in this room, especially for those who are watching this and wondering why on earth do we harp on these kinds of things. What baffles us is this is a president who from day one committed to be the most transparent president possible, who has given speeches at various events saying that he stands for and respects the freedom of the press. And here is a great opportunity to stand with the leader of the world's largest democracy, India, and two other key democracies, who are from a region of the world that is struggling to maintain democracy. Why not face questions from reporters and a free press
So which
in
part?
that setting?
Okay, so which part are you asking me about? Are you asking me about
Why
going?
are we being allowed to see these meetings at the House, and
there-
why is there no press conference?
Okay,
Which I think
okay,
was the
so-
crux of the negotiations, or at least the
No,
conversations that went on earlier today.
I hear you, but there are two things that I'm being asked. So let me. Not every opportunity that we have when we do have these foreign leaders here do we have a press conference. That is not unusual. We have gone many times back and forth about.
Which also frustrates us.
I totally understand. There's been some there's been some other visit where there has not been some press conferences, right? That is not unusual. We've had conversation. Excuse me. I'm not speaking to you. I really am not. Let me have my conversation with Ed. Thank you. And so it is not unusual for us to have this back and forth and talk about why it is happening or not happening. So that is, I'll put that there. The other part is this is an opportunity for the president to have a personal moment with the leaders. We have created other opportunities for you all to see him with those leaders, standing with those leaders, shaking hands with the leaders, giving them opportunities to see his high school, right? Places where that he's very much connected to, that you all will see. He's going to make a really important announcement about the Cancer Moonshot. We believe and I know there's a difference of agreement here, right, is that there's going to be plenty of opportunities for press to have access to see him with these other leaders. And so we have made sure, and people, I think people actually care about photo ops. Photo ops are indeed important because and maybe there'll be questions taken during those photo ops. You never know, right? But a formal press conference on this trip is not going to happen. With this particular event, is not going to happen. We have gone back and forth on many other events, so that's what I'm saying is not unusual. We wanted to make sure that there were plenty of press access throughout the day, and we believe we have done that. And let's see how the day goes. Let's see how the day goes on Saturday.
I just wanted to be there when Modi gets to see the Corvette, that's all. But I
Say that, I'm sorry,
I said
somebody
we
was
want to be
talking
there when
over
Modi
radio.
gets to see the Corvette, that's all.
Oh, the Corvette.
Thanks, Karine. Elon Musk is pledging to give away $1 million every day up until the election to voters in battleground states. Some experts are saying this is clearly illegal vote buying. Does the White House believe what he's doing is illegal?
So I'm going to have to refer you to the FEC. I'm not going to comment from here.
Can you talk about how the president's reacting to this in terms of, does he believe it's appropriate? Does he agree with what Governor Shapiro is saying about how this needs to be investigated?
I would leave it to Governor Shapiro and the legal authorities to speak to this. I'm just not going to speak to it from here. I would have to leave it to FEC.
And if you could just talk broadly about what Trump has also said about making Musk the head of a new government efficiency commission. Does the White House see that as a conflict of interest, given the fact that Musk's companies have so many contracts with government agencies, and it could potentially give him the power to regulate the agencies that hold sway over his own companies?
Well, since that's a campaign-related item there, what they're planning to do next, or what it looks like under, you know, and their platform for his campaign, I'm just not going to respond to it from here.
Any reaction from the president or White House about Elon Musk's role at this moment in the political discussion?
I have no response, no comment on that at this moment. Go ahead, Monica. Go ahead.
Thanks, Karine. Elon Musk has been, campaigning with former President Donald Trump, and he is offering $1 million to voters. I just was wondering, has the president expressed any concern to, this interference by Elon Musk? And I don't know if he, the administration maybe has any plans or has discussed maybe how to sort of maybe move forward with what Elon Musk is doing with the
So
$1 million.
on this particular question, I'm going to have to refer you to the FEC. Just have to be, that one, that's a place that I'm going to have to refer you. I can't speak to it beyond that.
But has the president mentioned it at all?
He's
Elon
aware
Musk,
of
or-
it. He's aware of it, that I can tell you. I just can't speak to it beyond that. I have to refer you to the FEC. Okay, Jen.
And you've taken questions today, and obviously throughout the presidency, President Biden has talked a lot about democratic institutions. I'm just curious if between now and Election Day, the president's going to speak sort of more broadly about the confidence in the votes being counted accurately.
Well, the president's talked about this. He believes in our institution. He believes in this will be a free and fair election. He's talked about this. We have to give the American people, who some of them are voting right now, to make sure that they have the confidence in their vote and how important it is to cast their vote. I'm not going to go beyond that, but I think the president has been very clear about that.
But you don't, so we talk about schedules or something, sort of like a big sort of, because he's done these types of addresses on issues like this before, so I'm just curious if this is a time that he
No,
would do
I
that.
hear you, and I hear you're talking about the moment that we're in, and if the president's going to speak about it in a more formal way in remarks in a speech, I don't have anything to share with you, but he's been very clear about having the confidence in our institutions, and so I'll leave it there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Karine. First on the comments last night, was the president aware in the moment, as soon as he had made those comments, that they could potentially be misconstrued and be problematic, or was it only after conversations with aides?
I'm not going to get into a process. I think what's important is the president put out a statement and wanted to make sure that he clarified himself, clarified what he meant here, and this is something that he wanted to do, and that's what you saw from this president last night, and I think that's important to note. I would also say, and I said this already and I'll say it again, from day one, this president has always said that he will be president for all Americans. It doesn't matter if you voted for him or not, and that continues to be the case. He was making a particular point, a specific point about a comedian and the hateful rhetoric that was heard by all of us. on Sunday, but I'm not going to get into the back and forth. I think what's important to note is that the president himself wanted to clarify this.
There have been a few times when the president has spoken off the cuff and appeared to be off message or had comments that have needed to be walked back or cleaned up. And I'm wondering, going into this final very high stakes stretch of the election, if there's going to be any changes to preparation or format for any of the final events that he's going to be participating in.
The president looks forward to being out there talking to the American people. You heard me talk about yesterday and how important that was, $3 billion in port infrastructure funding that's going to make a difference in 27 states. 11 of them are red states. This is what the president cares about, to deliver for all Americans. And so that was an event, that was a great event. We talked about the $147 million that's going to, he talked about this, that's going to go to the port. And not just like dealing with infrastructure, but also creating good paying jobs, thousands of good paying jobs. And so the president's going to continue to do that. I don't have any changes to speak to from here. And, you know, you saw the president in Pittsburgh just this past weekend as well. And this is more of a campaign. That was a campaign stop, so I'm going to be really mindful. But you saw him talking to laborers and union members. And they were thrilled to see him and very thankful for the work that he's done on behalf of union workers over the past 3+ years. And so that's what you're going to continue to see from the president. It doesn't matter if it's because of the election is a couple of days away. This is what he's going to go do in the next 3 months. And I think the president enjoys being out there, and nothing is going to stop him from doing that. Good, Karen.
Thanks. The White House had advised that the president will be heading to Pennsylvania twice at the end of this week, Philadelphia on Friday, Scranton on Saturday. Obviously, very important battleground state. First, can you talk about what he's going to be doing there at both of those stops? And second, is there any thought to not having him out on the campaign trail in a battleground state, given the criticism he's facing for the comments from last night?
So look, as you just stated, it's a campaign event. I'm not going to speak to the, on Saturday, yes. So I'm not going to speak to the details of the Scranton visit. I don't have anything else to add beyond what we shared with all of you in the week ahead. I don't have any changes. I don't have anything more to advise from here. What I can say is what I kind of said with Kayla in answering her question, which is the president certainly looks forward to being out there, speaking directly to the American people, talking about what we've been able to do and deliver in the past almost 4 years of this administration. And that's what he enjoys, right? He enjoys having those direct contact, if you will, with Americans. I don't have anything to share beyond what we already announced to all of you and shared with all of you about what the next couple of days are going to look like.
Give us a sense of why those two places. Did he want to go to those? I mean, they're pretty specific locations for him that he has ties
Look,
to.
I'm going to be super careful, super mindful from here, but as you know, the president is from Scranton. He loves Scranton. We've been there a couple of times, and I think he always looks forward to going back there. It is a place that he loves, a place where he spent a lot of time in his youth growing up, and still have close friends and family there. But also, he also believes it's important to continue to be out there to talk to folks directly about what we have done. I'm going to be super careful and not speak to anything beyond that. Once we have more details and information, obviously, we'll share that with all of you. Good, for sure.
And one last one, if
Sure.
I may.
Yeah,
Senator
sure.
Bernie Sanders, he says that he has suggested that party leadership abandon the working class. What's the White House response?
I mean, look, obviously we respect Senator Sanders. He's been a partner with us in many of the important historic pieces of legislation that we were able to get passed. Certainly the senator has been a partner with us. Here's what I will say to that is the president has been called the most pro-union president when it comes to working class, right? Pro-union, if you think about unions, we're talking about the working class, right? And he's done everything that he could to make sure that we created jobs where you don't need a college degree, right? Think about the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, you think about the CHIPS and Science Act. Those legislation created jobs, are going to create thousands of jobs where you literally could get a 6-figure salary a year and not have to have a college education. And the president created 16 million jobs in the past more than 3+ years. And it is because Wages went up, right? Unemployment has gone down, and he believes everybody deserves a shot. You hear him say that. Everybody deserves a shot. And building an economy from the bottom up, middle out, making sure that we are continuing to grow the middle class. I think you see that in his policies. And so, respectfully disagree with the senator, and I think you can talk to unions, you could see the jobs that we've been able to create to disprove that. And this is a president that cares certainly about the people who do get forgotten, the people who are not able to make ends meet. He understands what it's like to sit around a kitchen table trying to figure out how you're going to pay for a medical bill, how are you going to pay for your kids' school, how are you going to pay for groceries. And so does the vice president. Go ahead, Kim.
President-elect. Does the White House have any reaction to Matt Gaetz withdrawing his name for consideration to be the next Attorney General?
So what I'll say is, and we've been pretty steadfast on being consistent here, not going to comment on every personnel matter or all personnel matters here that the president-elect is deciding or is nominating people for at these respective agencies. We really truly want to respect the transfer of power. We want it to be efficient. We want it to happen in a way that the American people deserve. And that's what we've been trying to do. We believe that is very much part of our democratic principle, and that's what you're seeing this president do and lead by example. More broadly, as we talk about the Department of Justice more broadly, look, the president has said when it comes to investigation, that department should be independent. There should be no partisanship. There should be no loyalty to one party or the other. The loyalty should be to the Constitution, and the loyalty should be to the rule of law. And that is something I believe and we believe the president has led also on that particular issue by example.
And then on that topic, our understanding is that the Trump transition team hasn't signed the MOUs that are outstanding still. Is there any update that you can provide on your end, any progress there? Or is there concern now about how that may impede some of that transfer of power you're talking to?
Yeah, and so, and look, as you know, President Biden met with the president-elect to show that transition of power and obviously offering any assistance needed to make sure that happens in a way that is peaceful, obviously, and efficient. And so that was one part of it. Our teams continue to stay in touch. As of now, to your point, the Trump-Vance transition team has not yet entered into the agreements with the White House and the General Service Administration. As you know, the Chief of Staff Jeff Zients here has reached out to the co-chairs and have consistently reiterated the wanting to work together and making sure that they have what they need. So we're going to continue to engage with the Trump transition team to ensure that we do have that efficient, effective transition of power. And in those conversations, we certainly are stressing that the White House and the administration stand ready to provide assistance and that access to services and information certainly outlined in the GSA and the White House Memorandum of Agreement, those MOUs. So those conversations continue, and we want this to go smoothly, and that's what we're trying to get to.
And then a different part of the question. In your first briefing here, as press secretary, you committed to speaking to the American people in, and I quote, in a transparent way, in a truthful way, and an honest way.
Yes.
And then in July, here at this podium, you were asked about the president pardoning his son, and he said, it's a no, it will be a no, it's a no.
Yes. And that is exactly right.
So clearly of the president's son and that pardon, it became a yes. I'm wondering if you would like to explain to us, the American people, really why the information that you provided turned out not to be true.
And I answered this question on Monday. We spent about 30 minutes on this, almost 30 minutes, roughly 30 minutes on this particular issue. And I'm just going to reiterate what I said on Air Force One to your colleagues when I did the gaggle. And look, if you look at his statement, it's pretty comprehensive. The statement that he put out on Sunday when he made this decision to pardon his son, Hunter Biden. It's in his own voice. I think it takes you through his thinking. And he did. He wrestled with this. And again, he said in his statement, in his own voice, that he made that decision this past weekend. And the fact is, when you think about how the president got to this decision, circumstances have changed. They have. And a couple of things, and I said this on Monday as well. Republicans said they weren't going to let up, weren't going to stop. Recently announced Trump appointees for law enforcement have said on the campaign that they were out for retribution, and I think we should believe their words, right? We should believe what they say. The sentencing was coming up, as you all know. There was a sentencing coming up, and the president said this in his statement, that Hunter and his family had been through enough. Enough is enough. And he wrestled with these circumstances, these changing circumstances ultimately. And the combination of that, the president changing his mind and issuing, certainly led to the president changing his mind and issuing this pardon. And one thing that I do want to point to, which I think is important, is what Congressman James Clyburn said when he was interviewed. He said, "I am absolutely okay with it. I don't know how many people urge him to do so, but I did." He seemed to be reticent about it. This is what Clyburn said when he spoke to the president 2 weeks ago. But I emphasized, continuing his quote, emphasized the fact that we as fathers have obligations to our children. So that was a conversation that the congressman himself had with the president two weeks ago, said that the president was reticent when he encouraged the president to do so. And this weekend, he thought about it, and he weighed, it was not an easy decision to come to, and he put out a comprehensive statement, and I would certainly, offer that up to folks out there who are wondering. I would say, please read the president's response to this in full.
I'm sure my colleagues have a few follow-ups, just very specifically.
It's not only colleagues who watch this. There's also the American people. So to be fair,
and they were
right?
told by you in July that this would not happen, and it did. Do you, I'm saying, asking for yourself, not the president's statement, but for yourself. Do you feel like you are owed an apology by the president? Do you owe an apology to the American people?
Zeke, I just laid out the president's thinking. The president laid it out himself in his own words. He did. He laid out how he wrestled with this decision. He said in his statement, as a president, as a father, he talked about how difficult it was to make this decision. He thought about it this weekend. He did. He thought about it this weekend. He wrestled with it. And there are some, factors, some real factors that he took into consideration. And that's why I keep saying folks should just take a look. Take a look. Read his statement. And I know what I said. I know what the president said. That is where we were at the time. That is where the president was at the time. I am his spokesperson. This weekend, he thought about it. He wrestled with it. He wrestled with it and made this decision. That's what I can tell the American people.
Why should they have any confidence in anything else?
I think the American people understand, and I think they understand how difficult this decision would be. And I would actually add, and I think it's important to note here as you're asking me these questions, important questions to ask, that there was a poll, a US Gov poll that came out, that some of you all reported on it, and it said 64% of the American people agree with the pardon. 64% of the American people. So we get a sense of where the American people are on this. Obviously it's one poll, but it gives you a little bit of insight. 64% is nothing to sneeze at. But again, the president talked about this, his own words. He said this weekend he wrestled with this. This weekend he thought about this, and he made this decision. And let's not forget, we can't also forget what some of the legal experts and former prosecutors have all agreed on. Many across the country have virtually said no one would be criminally prosecuted with felony offenses with these facts, and they've all agreed. We've heard from many legal experts on this. You heard me quote the former Attorney General Eric Holder multiple times, I think about 8 times on Monday. No U.S. attorney would have charged this case given the underlying facts. Had his name been Joe Smith, the resolution would have been fundamentally and more fairly a declination, pardon warranted. And we've heard from many legal experts and also obviously a former U.S. attorney.